gentlemen, my name is Andrew Stott and I'm the Emperor of Stomaria. Today we're continuing with our Voices of the Empire series, where I'll be going over how our plans are now being turned into actions. So as per usual, let me just make some minor adjustments to get this right here. Don't know how exactly we're going to play this. A bit closer maybe. Now, for our regular viewers, you probably know that it's a little bit of a faff to start with, just while I get everything set up. Only because... not too bad. It's almost impossible to do without actually starting a live. Right. I think that's okay. Scooch myself forward for a minute. Right, fantastic. Right. Just grab in here. There we go. Right, so some of our regulars already in the chat, which is good to go. So Estuo says hello. We'll be able to be all of this live, so you're going to be able to watch it all. Well, we'll see, because it depends how long we go, I suppose. Nation of Verendale says hello. I've made it. Fantastic. It's been a little while, I think, since we've spoken Verendale. Hope you've been keeping well. Stuart says, remember to like the live. Absolutely. Make sure you give that a like. Make sure you encourage the old algorithm to push it out to more people. That would be good to know. Archachov, Polinia. We've had this conversation before. If I can't pronounce your name, that's not on me. I'll say Polinia. They say hi. Nibuya. It's Nibuya, isn't it? Nibu Music says good day. Carlos says, well, just give him a nice little wave. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so we've got some of our familiar faces here. It is getting a bit like that now, isn't it? When it comes to our YouTube lives, we have a kind of like a dedicated crew that like to show up, like to be here, like to be present, and you know, be a part of that. But ironically enough, I'm not sure, out of everyone here, for instance, and there's a few others, very, very few, if anyone, is actually a Stomarian citizen, which is interesting. Oh, and you didn't change your name, so you're still Transrestan. No, Transrestan. Oh, you got to change that name. You got to change it. Seb's here saying evening. Good evening, Seb. Can't remember if you were in the last live or not. It feels like a while since I've had a conversation with you. But yeah, pleased to have you here. Just while there's a lull in the proceedings, thoughts on expanding Stomaria. That's what we will be talking about at some detail over the course of this evening, I'm sure. But specifically, there are some things that I wanted to discuss in terms of some of our plans becoming actions. And so I did want to discuss that quickly before we delved into some Q&A sort of side of things, because I do tend to get sidetracked and the actual purpose of the video gets lost until about an hour into it. So when it comes to the plans that we have had in place to raise additional revenue, to make sure that... Oh, hang on, sorry. I have to stop now. Carlos has kindly contributed to the Super Chat goal. Very, very much appreciated. And for those who might just be tuning in, if people do contribute financially, I do just jump to those comments before I continue on with what I'm doing, just as a show of appreciation, really. So Carlos has made a contribution, and from what I remember, it is Brazilian real. I think someone made the same comment. But honestly, every penny, pound, euro, cent, dollar, yen, whatever it is, every financial contribution is not something that anyone within this chat or within this live has to give. As I say, it's weird because some of the most generous contributors to Stomaria are from those that aren't even, as far as I'm aware, Stomarians. And it is, interesting to me. And I do say time and time again, if you are looking to contribute financially to Stomaria, hugely appreciated. But I would strongly recommend that you do so through our Patreon campaign, because first of all, it'll probably be more cost effective on your end to pay. I think the minimum, well, I know the minimum threshold is £1 a month to become a Stomarian citizen. So it equates to about £12 a year, and already a lot of our more regular contributors have contributed far more than that, even in the last couple of live streams, really. And it's also more beneficial to us from a financial perspective, because Patreon takes less of a cut than YouTube does. And also it helps to boost our ranks and helps to get you involved in a more formal capacity, and can solidify your place within our community in a more meaningful, impactful way. But all that aside, still very much appreciative of the contributions that we get through our YouTube chats, because for whatever reason some people do prefer to do it that way rather than through Patreon. And as I say, every penny, every pound, it all helps towards advancing our goals. So thank you very much, Carlos, very much appreciated. Make sure everyone, you give some love to Carlos in the chat for his massive contribution. Get those hearts going, get those what do you call them, the little party flares going. Make sure you type of a comment or whatever else, just thanking him, because or her, I don't actually know, is it him or her, Carlos? I'm not actually sure what you are. So I mean, as a default, I would always say he, because in this game, in this kind of niche sort of field, I'd say like 90 to 95% of the people involved are men. Yeah, thank you very much. Right, where was I? Okay, so I'm just going to hop back to it. So the plans that we've had in place in order to raise additional revenue for Stomaria and the Empire in order to acquire our next province, these have been, as outlined in previous videos and previous live streams, an attempt for us to not only raise additional revenue through things like our Patreon campaign, or through the Sealand merchandise, or through super chats and things like that, but also through massive cuts to what Stomaria would normally spend funds on. It might be expanding our merchandise range, it might be acquiring additional Stomarian status, it might be hosting gatherings and events and putting on a decent spread or whatever else. Instead, we're going to be cutting all that back to put the funds aside for the acquisition of the next province. And a big part of this push, certainly on the Waywoodian front, who are very much spearheading this, I think it's fair to say, is the utilization of our existing lands. And specifically, this is going to involve glamping. Now, this is something that we have talked about for a while now, probably over a year at this point, but we've never really pulled the trigger. But that has now changed. I have apparently, through my rousing speeches, or announcements at least, inspired the Waywoodian community to pull themselves together in a bit more of a serious way. And I've been helping King Daniel of Waywood to prepare the land for this glamping venture. Thank you very much, Carlos, again, for your another contribution. Very, very generous. You're going to make me read your comment, are you, before I continue? So Carlos says, what are your thoughts about religion in politics? So I will answer this question again, because you made a financial contribution. I'm obliged to pivot to you. So when it comes to politics and religion, or more specifically religion in politics, I am someone that is quite deeply secular, in the sense that I think having a particular faith guiding your values, your politics, your policies, anything that's going to have an impact on other people who may not share your faith, I think is overall detrimental to the wider community. That is to say, if you had some sort of theocracy or some sort of theocratic government of some kind rather than a secular one, then it would inevitably mean that more people would be disenfranchised if they do not share that faith, if they've not been brought up in that faith. And so, and this goes whichever way. It doesn't matter if it's a a Muslim majority country or Christian majority country or whatever else. I think that the government of whichever country we're talking about, regardless of what the uh, religious demographic is, should be, on the face of it, simply about advancing the interests of people as a whole rather than adhering to a political religious doctrine. Now, I get it that it's probably a bit more complicated when it is, say a Muslim majority country and that population actively wants to have laws that are, religious based. But from my perspective, I think religion does more harm than good in the grand scheme of things. I think there are, great benefits that come from religion. I define myself as a cultural Christian. Britain, the British Isles, it wouldn't be what it is now if it wasn't for the influence of the Christian faith over, more than 1,000 years. And, I won't, undermine or discredit that in any way. The culture that we have is a culture that I very much am appreciative of being a part of. But with that said, I think Britain is probably a good example of how you can be a Christian country, but also have a relatively secular government, in the sense that I don't consider either the Conservative Party or the Labour Party, or indeed any of the major parties, to be particularly religious in nature. They might have, particular undertones of Christian values or Christian ethics or whatever else, especially on the Conservative front, for instance. But I don't think that there is any real risk or any element of any kind of policies or politics being enacted based on religious doctrine in this country. And I think that's a good mix to be in, because it allows for more people to express themselves more freely. It allows for, to some degree or another, hopefully greater degree of community cohesion, because there's less friction. There's not, particular government policies or government doctrine being forced upon one group or another, or favouring one group or another based on their religious preferences. And so I think this is a good blend to have. Certainly in Stomaria, if we're talking about the nation building experience, for Stomaria, I think it is a case of, me being at the head of the empire, obviously, and I'm a secular individual. I don't have any particular faith. As I mentioned earlier, I am what I might define as a cultural Christian. So I do things like, I do the Easter, the Christmas, and I'm very interested in and fascinated by sort of the religious doctrines of Christianity, as well as its architecture and the elements that have all gone together. Christianity being a part of it, that has made English culture and British culture what it is. I do think that's, on some level, it's always going to be enshrined within that. But as I say, I'm not a religious person in the sense that I go to church regularly, in the sense that I pray to one God or another. I'm generally of the opinion that I'll simply live my good life as well as I can, and be as good a person as I can. And if that's not enough to get me through the pearly gates, if there are any, then so be it. But in answer to your question, generally against religion in politics, but it's quite challenging to pry it away entirely, particularly in populations which are incredibly religious in nature. But as we're starting from scratch, we have the opportunity, obviously, to build something that is reflective of my own opinions and my own values and my own beliefs, which is why Stomaria is not religious based. It's not something where religion is a factor when I come up with the decisions that are made within Stomaria. So hopefully that answers your question. Sorry, it's a bit of a long, convoluted way of getting around it, but these are far more philosophical questions than I'm typically used to. Right, no, I was talking about what we're going to do. Right, so on when was it? On the Monday, I took Monday off and I went down to meet with King Daniel at the Woodland at Southwood and Wayward South, where we have been preparing the land for this glamping venture. And over the following days, King Daniel has been organising the acquisition of a glamping tent and all of the furnishings, and that has arrived today for the most part, and it's been set up more or less. There's a few small bits here and there that need to be added, but otherwise we're more or less good to go. And myself and Empress Samantha and Princess Eleanor will be going down to the woodland tomorrow in order to have a photo shoot of sorts, because we're going to be used as props, if you like, for the launch of this glamping venture, which is a Weywoodian and Stomarian venture. So it's a joint venture of sorts in which we're going to be raising revenue through this glamping venture in order to acquire the next territory. Now, it has required a lot of investment, certainly on the Weywoodians' part, and obviously 100% of the proceeds initially will go towards paying off all of the capital that's been used to set everything up. But after that, it should hopefully be more or less all profit. And I think the initial idea is to market it as somewhere between £2 and £250 a night. It might come down, we might offer discounts or deals or whatever else, depending on how long they stay or who they are or where they're coming from or whatever else. But the bottom line is that we are going to hopefully start generating revenue by utilising the land in a more meaningful way, in a more impactful way. Obviously we have the, well, I'll talk about that later, but we have the poultry and the rhubarb and all the rest of it, very small industries there. They don't generate capital revenue in the on the kind of scale that we want in order to push things forward. And so utilising Southwood and Wayward South for tourism, for lack of a better term, is certainly going to be the way forward, I think. But we'll see how it goes. It's going to be an adventure. So while we have a quick break in the proceedings here, let me just have a quick look. Transrastan says, Micronationalist claimed about Empress Samantha jewellery. I'm not sure what that means, I'm afraid. You'll have to be more specific. I don't know if it's a question or a statement, but I don't know what it means either way. So you'll have to you have to elaborate. Polinia says, what are some tips you would give to a micronation trying to become more serious in micronationalism? Well, I mean, the brutal honest truth is that in order for a micronation to become what you might call quote unquote more serious is, first of all, I would cease participation if you are already participating in micronational spaces, frankly, because I think on the whole, a lot of people seem to assume that because they are a micronation or a nation building project, that commenting or posting about your respective projects in these spaces is going to advance your interests, whereas I don't think it really does at all. And this is coming from someone that spent where was it? Probably over 3 years contributing in such places. Our growth and our expansion and our development did not occur in any meaningful, real capacity until we stopped contributing in those spaces and started going our own way. And you can build up your own platforms. If you are genuine and serious about what you're doing, people will come to find you. You don't need to advertise yourself on micronational groups or forums or servers or subreddits or whatever else, because 90% of the time, all you're going to be doing is sifting through unrefined slop, which is getting more and more commonplace, especially these days, not helped by the use of AI, which not adverse to. I don't have any particular gripe against AI, but obviously in the micronationalist community, AI is used to an absurd degree to build up a fantasy for themselves, and a lot of the content that you post is just going to get drowned out by a lot of this other stuff. And anything that you do post that gains some traction, you are going to be engaged with people, with entities which are not serious, which don't have any credibility, which have a very short life expectancy. And so what is there to gain, I suppose, would be my question in posting in these spaces, because for the most part, these entities are not looking to do what you're looking to do. If indeed you are looking to be more serious in terms of building something meaningful, something genuine and generational, you need to find spaces in which is you're going to be able to prosper more. You're going to be able to gain traction more. Because I've always said that micronationalism is an interesting blend of different communities, or it certainly can be. So you have, you could have live action role players, you could have preppers, you could have homesteaders, you could have people that are interested in vexillology, you could have people that are interested in monetary history or whatever else. Lots of different kind of interests within the micronational community, at least in theory. And I mean, Stomaria as a good example, we have pulled in citizens and supporters from across quite a wide range of different niches, a lot of different interests. And that's purely because when we talk about X, Y, and Z, if we talk about, the latest batch of Stomarian staters, then it's going to be a case of people that are interested in silver and gold will take note of that and will potentially get involved. If we talk about, as we did recently, Stomaria's history in terms of the initial inspiration being from an RTS game called Empire Earth. When we post about something like that, then we naturally get more attention from those that are interested in real-time strategy games or just gaming in general. And it only takes a few people to take an interest in order to get the ball rolling. And because, as I say, we have a decent-sized platform as it is. I mean, Stomaria's platform is, I think, on the whole, a lot larger in the great scheme of things than most micronational groups and forums and servers and subreddits and all the rest. Just sort of numerically and our ability to reach people, I think I think it overshadows most. So from our perspective, it's not really necessary for us to do that. And it's also helped by the fact that a lot of our supporters and detractors will often share our own content in those spaces anyway. I never understood the motivation from our detractors to share our content in these spaces in an attempt to mock us, as if greater exposure isn't going to advance our interests. But I guess I'm wired slightly differently than most people in that way, because I can't fathom it. I can't understand it. Just fueling the fire, fueling the growth of Stomaria. Perfectly happy to do so, but can't see the rationale for it. Maybe they're secret Stomarian supporters. It's the only way I can sort of rationalize it. The only way I can think that they make sense, that they're going to be sharing our content out there. But all by the by, when we stopped referring to Stomaria as a micronation back at the tail end of 2022, we were doing okay when it came to our own platforms, our own accounts. We had, take our YouTube channel as a good example, I suppose. I think we probably had maybe 11 or 1,200 people following us at that point. Might be a bit more. But now, more than, where are we now? So 2022, a little under 4 years later, we're now sitting at closer to 6,000. And a big part of that is simply because what I talk about and what we talk about actually means something, actually resonates with people in a way that most micronational groups and forums and the content on there simply doesn't. Who wants to hear about the latest flag design? Who wants to hear about the latest bit of paper currency that someone's printed out? Who wants to hear about the latest declaration of war against some two random micronations that no one's ever heard of and will be extinct within a matter of weeks? Who's got time to invest their energy or their interest in things that have such a short time frame like that? It's something that I have said before, but we have, all of us, a finite amount of time on this little blue marble. We have a finite amount of time to dedicate towards the nation building experience. Even, if you got school or university or work and you also have a family and you have other interests, how much time realistically are you dedicating to the nation building experience? And how much more of that time would be taken up by engaging in activities within the micronational community that does not serve your long-term goals, that does not serve any real purpose? And I've made this mistake before. I don't say this as someone that's passing judgment as such. I say this as someone which has a great deal of experience with this. I will, you can look back at some of the earlier commentary on Stomaria's or my personal Reddit accounts as a good example. When I first joined Reddit, and we were still identifying as a micronation, because this was back in 2020, so I think it was March 2020 when I first joined Reddit with my original u/Stomaria account, and sometimes I do think, and you can go back and look at some of the earlier content I posted. So, you know, the usual stuff we'd post would literally just take all of the content that we normally put and we put it on the subreddit. And a lot of the commentary on there was, oh, do you want an alliance? Do you want an alliance? Or, oh, we're declaring war, or oh, X, Y, and Z. And I would engage with these people on our own posts. And if you go back on these, you could win an argument with any of them 1,000 times over. But the problem is they just don't exist anymore. So what did you gain out of it? What did I gain out of it? What has been achieved exactly? You know, spend your time wisely. That's what I'm trying to get across here. Spend your time wisely, because you won't get it back, and it's the one thing you can't get back. So make sure. I mean, probably going a bit more philosophical than I intended, but it's true. We have a finite amount of time. Use your time wisely, and especially when it comes to nation building experience, place your energy where it's worthwhile. Sorry, that was probably a bit of a longer, convoluted answer than you were looking for, but you know, hopefully just share some of my thoughts on that. Jen says, we, Kingdom of Betelgeuse, are based in Texas. We have inhabited the territory in Colorado. But we have inhabited territory in Colorado. Yes, they wanted to join. I'm not necessarily following that, but they wanted to join. I'm not sure what that's about, but it's good to hear that you're progressing, I suppose. Right. Tips on printing money for a micronation. Don't. If you're going to go down the route of building a monetary system for your nation building project or your micronation or however you define it, do not go down the route of simply printing off bits of paper at home or ordering bits of paper online or whatever else and then declaring it has some sort of monetary value, because it does not. If you want to use a currency, just use the national currency in which you are based. So if you're living in the US, use the dollar. If you're in the UK, use the pound. Because I promise you, it is more worthwhile using these currencies, these national currencies, which you can actually utilize for something, rather than creating this fake currency that literally no one, either within or without your community, is ever going to use. Because why would anyone do so? It's not intrinsically valuable to anyone, including yourself. And my golden rule is that if you yourself would not work day in and day out for weeks, months, or years at a time for your currency, then why would anyone else be tempted to acquire it through trade or commerce or through the provision of a service? It's just not going to happen. You can stack up as many bits of paper as you want, but I'm not going to spend any time earning that. I'm not going to give you goods in exchange for it, because it means nothing to me. It's worthless to me. Whereas at least with the pound and the euro and the dollar and all the rest of it, still intrinsically worthless, but still has value in the sense that other people do place a value on it, and so you can utilize it for things. If you want to go down the route of creating your own unique monetary system, then the only way to do that, realistically, is to have a commodity money, because then it has value not only within the community that you're building, but also the wider world. So people without the community, people outside the community, they will see a commodity money and they will value it because it is a commodity. Now, I would typically go down the route of things like gold and silver. You could, play around with things like copper or brass or whatever else. I have discussed this in the past. Economically speaking, the premiums just don't add up. You would have to pay vastly more for copper than you would actually get in terms of its value, certainly as a trading asset. And you'd need so much of it to engage even the smallest sort of exchanges that it would just be not economical and not really worthwhile. But it is potentially a good starting point, if only just to experiment with it, to play around with the idea, to get used to the idea of having a commodity as a medium of exchange rather than bits of paper or digits on the screen. So yeah, when it comes to printing money, don't. Thoughts on communism? I think you're just trolling me at this point. Well, my thoughts on communism are pretty succinct. Communism is a vile, oppressive, collectivist ideology which destroys the natural rights of the individual, causes untold misery, poverty, and death amongst hundreds of thousands and millions of people, and everywhere that it is tried, one of two things happen. Either people throw it out at the first opportunity, or the governing authority of that nation, of that state, ramps up the terror, ramps up the oppression to the point where the people simply can't get rid of it. And those are the kinds of communist states you have. You have former communist states, and then you have the likes of China or Cuba or Venezuela, where political corruption and autocracy reign, and the people just accept it because they have no, power or opportunity to throw it out. Whereas if you look at any other communist countries, you have obviously Eastern Germany, you had Poland, you had Bulgaria, you had Romania, you had various of the the Yugoslavia states. There is no, or even the Soviet Union itself, Russia, there is no space for communism when it comes to its place to be implemented, in the sense that, as I say, it's either going to be a former communist state or an oppressive communist state. Those are the only two kind of communist states. Because people don't like being crushed. People don't like being oppressed. People don't like being forced into these awful societies. I made I don't know if you call it a meme, but certainly some artwork the other day, where it was said something along the lines of, do you remember that time when capitalist societies put up massive walls to stop all of their citizens from fleeing to communist utopias? Yeah, I don't remember that either. And the point of that post, the point of that comment, that image, was that there is not a time, certainly that I can recollect, in which capitalist societies, in which you had a free market and private property and all the rest of it, there was not a time where that was the driving factor for people fleeing for their lives, or people fleeing to a society which would advance their interests more. There's plenty of evidence to suggest that communist people are desperate to get out of their communist hellholes, but certainly the reverse is not true. And that's not to say that there's never been a dictatorship that utilized free market capitalism to some degree or another. But as I've said before, free market capitalism capitalism is an economic system. It's not a political system. No tyrant rose to power because people had free private property and were able to engage in free exchange and all the rest of it. And that's ultimately what capitalism is. It's simply the freedom, the right to your own labor, and the right to make profit based on your own risk tolerances, I suppose. But yeah, private property, the freedom of association, freedom of speech, all of this is derived from capitalist Western society, by and large, and the communist doctrine is the antithesis of this, and I despise it, because Stomaria, first and foremost, is a nation, a community that wants to advance the interests of the individual. We want to advance private property. We want to advance individual liberty. I might sit at the top here as the Emperor of Stomaria, but I'm not the Emperor of the Stomarians. Stomarians are individuals in their own right. People have their own right to choose their own destiny, to choose their own path. And I believe that the role of any government body is to simply get out of the way of people. And that's why we're structured in the way that we are. We are a federal monarchy. We are incredibly decentralized in terms of how we operate. The member states operate domestically, almost without my input at all. I mean, a lot of the time I don't know what they're up to, because it's not my intention or desire to sit on their shoulders and observe everything they're doing and then tax them or whatever else. I'm just letting them live their own lives, and they form part of a larger community within the empire that shares those values, that shares those aspirations. And so that's where we're at with that. Freedom is a big part of what we believe in, and anything that would undermine that, especially in places like communism, it's just not something we're going to tolerate. Certainly within our community. Stuart says he made several videos about communism, safe to say he won't like communism. Yeah, exactly right. And they say, well, I don't support capitalism. Well, this is the thing. I've never seen more people around the world with access to technology that capitalism has produced, and to witness the elevation of people's standard of living beyond incomprehensible levels, like unfathomable throughout human history. There are people living on council estates that live better than the kings of ancient past, and yet still there are people out there that will insist that capitalism is some sort of inherent evil. And it really baffles me. The kings of Egypt, couldn't have dreamt of having, running hot water to have a shower, or the ability just to pop over to, a local McDonald's or something and get more calories than most people in that period would have eaten in, a week. I mean, again, it's baffling to me that we live in a society which is so self-hating and so unappreciative of just how far we have come and how much better off we all are, all of us. Oh, sorry, I'm going to have to pause it for a second there. We have just received the Independent Democratic Republic of Zion. Sir, that is absolutely that's amazing. Thank you. For those that don't know, Zion is run by a very, very generous gentleman who quite evidently incredibly supportive of Stomaria, but more to the point, he is someone that he's contributed vast amounts. In fact, he's probably one of the largest contributors. Sorry, I'm a little bit lost for words at the moment. For those that can't see, he's just contributed $100 to Stomaria through our super chat. Absolutely amazing, absolutely incredible. He was actually one of the ones. This is probably going back a few months ago now. One of our most generous contributors. In fact, the most generous contributor through our YouTube lives up until that point, and he's just broken his own record. Where he was sending like $20 and $20 and $10, whatever else. And I'd actually got to a point, even during then, where I had to tell him to stop contributing, or I would, issue a temporary ban because he was just, contributing so much. And he's just jumped in and literally slam dunked $100 for the Sumerian cause. Absolutely fantastic, absolutely amazing. We have had some private conversations before. I will be sure to send you another email later. We need to. We need to facilitate something between Zion and the Empire. We really do. So I promise you I won't soon forget. But I will be in touch. So keep an eye out for the email, because I would like to build a closer relationship with Zion, because it has gone far and above what we would reasonably expect anyone to do in terms of their support for the Empire and support for Stomaria. And so I do want to make sure that this is facilitated in some way. I want to make sure that this relationship is built in a more formal capacity. And depends on, I think you're in the States, and we do have people in the States, so we might be able to facilitate some kind of meeting between representatives, between yourself and one of ours, but also as a formal ally or associate of some kind, or a partner of Stomaria and the Empire, as soon as we can get that hashed out. I would obviously like to have a video call with your good self as well. So sorry about that, guys. I'm just slightly taken aback. That was unexpected, but extremely welcome. Thank you ever so much. Yeah, Esther just says, safe to say that the Independent Democratic Republic of Zion has earned his citizenship. And this is what I keep saying. This is what I said earlier in this video. To become a citizen, you just have to join our Patreon. It's £1 a month. If you want to support Stomaria, that's all it's literally all I require. Massive contributions like this are incredibly, the gratitude I can't express enough gratitude for that kind of contribution. But honestly, it would be enough. It would be enough if people just joined the Patreon campaign, £1 a month or whatever else. Then that would be absolutely fine. And then I would feel like you're actually a more integral part of the community. I feel like you were contributing to the wider goal that you were actually a part of, rather than being an external partner too. And that goes for everyone that contributes through the super chats and all the rest of it. Hugely appreciative. But I would really, I much prefer you all just to become Stomarian citizens, contribute far less in the great scheme of things, but also feel like that you're a part of something that is, your contributions go into something that you yourself are a part of, rather than kind of almost witnessing it on the sidelines. Because I do feel guilty, I feel bad about it on a great many levels. Because there's only so much we can do as a way of thanks, and I can only say thank you so many times without gushing over you too much. But you know, as Stuart says, come on, you can give 200. No, that's unnecessary. We've already far surpassed what I would expect. I mean, even when like when Carlos contributed earlier, that was incredibly generous as well. People contribute what they can. People contribute what they're able to, and what for them is considered reasonable. And for me, if a multi-millionaire contributes £1,000, but someone that's working at McDonald's contributes £5, I value those much the same, because that's someone that has contributed what they can afford, someone that has contributed what can be reasonably expected. And so I as much as I do strongly value and very much appreciative of Zion's contribution, I don't want to suggest that like Kaulos's contribution or anyone else's contribution that doesn't quite match that is in any way inferior in my eyes, because none of you have to contribute anything. You could just be sat there watching this entirely for free, give nothing to Stomaria, nothing to the Empire, and even by just watching this, you are helping to advance the interests of Stomaria and the Empire, because we get ad revenue, and it helps to encourage more people to get involved and to join and all the rest of it. I mean, we got like, what is it? It hovers around sort of 12 to 16 viewers or something to that effect, maybe 10. But we only get normally a handful of people commenting and interacting and all the rest of it. And for those few to be able to contribute as much as they do, it voluntarily, without getting anything from it really, aside from a shout out from us, it's amazing, simply amazing. So thank you all. I will scroll back a little bit just so we can catch up, but amazing, Zion, thank you. And if anyone can remind me what I was actually talking about before we had that contribution, that would also be appreciated. That aside, I will try to find... Oh yeah, we were talking about why you don't like capitalism. Well, we've just witnessed capitalism in action, so... why does it do this? Why is tips become more serious? We've done that one. Thoughts on people that protest against you, the Emperor? Well, there's no one that protests my rule as the Emperor of Stomaria, as far as I know. But I have the same response every time. It's that if people aren't happy with me as the Emperor of Stomaria and they're Stomarians, then they're welcome to leave, because I'm not going anywhere. It'll be eventually passed down. The Empire of Stomaria. Stomaria will be passed down to Empress Samantha and then Empress Eleanor when the time comes. It depends on when it is I pop my clogs. But in the meantime, Stomaria is built on voluntary association, voluntary affiliation. If people aren't happy with me, if people aren't happy with Stomaria, the way it's going, the way it's presented, the way I go about myself, whatever else, no one is forced to join. No one is forced to remain. And there's no ill will or anything to that effect when people join but eventually leave Stomaria. I'm sure there have been plenty of people that have left Stomaria. In fact, I know definitively there have been people that have joined Stomaria and then left Stomaria. I've not gone on any kind of witch hunt. I've not tracked them down and berated them or whatever else. I've just either said nothing or wished them very well for the future. So if they are Stomarians and they have an issue with me, they're welcome to leave. But more to the point, if there are people outside of Stomaria that don't like me, I give even less of a crap, frankly. Because, I'm not going to change my path. I'm not going to alter my opinions based on what other people say I should be like, or the way I should present myself, or what I should believe. I am who I am. I believe what I believe, and I will present everything that I believe in a way that I think is going to advance the interests of Stomaria and advances the interests of the values that I represent. And if it rubs people the wrong way, then so be it. It's, neither here nor there to me. We have plenty of haters and plenty of detractors, but quite self-evident we have more than sufficient supporters behind us, both Sumerian citizens and supporters. And as can be seen this evening, our supporters can be as generous, if not more so, than the actual citizens of Stomaria. And so it is undeniable that we have a very sizable support base that a lot of people, especially our detractors, either don't want to acknowledge or live in blissful ignorance about. So it is what it is. Conganon says, best Scandinavian country. I wouldn't like to say necessarily. Best Scandinavian country. So I'm guessing we're going to say Denmark, Finland, Sweden, and Norway. But I suppose you could also have, would you count, I don't know, Scandinavian country. Does Greenland and Iceland count as a Scandinavian country? Count as Scandinavian countries. Obviously, Denmark is a Obviously, Greenland is. What is Denmark's relationship with Greenland? Is Greenland a province or an autonomous territory? It's controlled by Denmark in some way, but all by the by. I can't say I have a preference when it comes to Scandinavian countries. I've never been to a Scandinavian country, but I am told, and I have seen through various videos and photos and all the rest of it, that it is a very beautiful part of the world in its own way. Very cold, and I don't typically do the cold very well. But certainly at certain times of the year, it does strike me as incredibly beautiful and a very interesting history, which I would like to learn more about in the fullness of time. I think a lot of people's understanding of Scandinavian countries kind of just revolves around Vikings, which is fair enough. And it's just an interesting thing that we were talking about not so long ago. I can't remember if it was a live stream, but it's always interesting to me to think that, like, if we look at the Viking era, for instance, in relation to the United Kingdom, to Britain, and to England, it is interesting to me that a lot of people think that, like in 1066 with William the Conqueror, people assume that we came from Normandy, northern France, so we were conquered by the French, and we are now ruled by the French through the current monarch, because they are direct descendants of William the Conqueror. But the reality is that Normandy and the Normans and King William himself were descendants of Vikings. So it is an interesting history, because incidentally we're actually watching Vikings, me and Samantha at the moment. I've watched it 2 or 3 times already, but we're watching it together now because she hasn't seen it yet. She gets turned off by a lot of the gore, but we're just skipping through those bits. But the reason I mention it is because within that series, obviously, we'll explain a little bit more detail. But Normandy, northern France, that part of northern France, was actually gifted to the Vikings by is it the king or the emperor of the Franks? And the idea was that it basically create a buffer state to stop the Viking raiders from coming. So basically they used Vikings as buffers against other Vikings. And then as time passed on, these dukes of Normandy, which were descended from Vikings, eventually laid claim to the English throne, and the rest is history. So it's interesting to think that King Charles III is in many ways a direct descendant of Viking raiders, and that's just an interesting little snippet of history which I find quite fascinating. But in answer to your question, I do want to learn more about more Scandinavian countries. I particularly want to delve into some of the histories, like the North Sea Empire and the I'm not sure if it's an empire, but the Swedish Kingdom or the Swedish Empire, which a lot of people, myself included, don't know a huge amount about. But yeah, I would like to learn more about that kind of history, and I would like to visit some of the landscapes at some point, but not on the cards in the immediate future. Maybe we'll buy some land there, establish a province. Estua says, it's always funny to see haters comment in your videos because they're helping it to spread while they're trying to convince people that Stomaria is bad. Yeah, exactly. I mean, haters gonna hate, but they just fuel the algorithm. I like to bait them, in a lot of times. I mean, a lot of our supporters can normally tell because some of the videos that I put out quite deliberately is designed to provoke our haters and detractors from to share our content, comment on our content, or whatever else. But weirdly enough, some of the most engaging content from our haters' perspective, where they would share it or comment in it or whatever else, is content that is not inherently designed to be triggering, but it's just about Stomaria. And it seems baffling to me. It's like if I don't like a project, right? If I'm not interested in a project, I won't follow that project. I won't engage with that project. I won't talk about that project. I mean, I can name you 1,000 examples of 1,000 different, micronations as a good example of, that have wronged us in some way, that have, declared war or, spammed our Discord or whatever else. You won't see me going onto their channels and Discord servers or whatever else and trying to start beef with them or comment on whatever else. I'd typically just block them and move on with the rest of my life. And for some reason, our haters and our detractors just can't seem to do that. We live rent free in their heads a lot of the time, which is somewhat gratifying to me in some ways. Because to me, it's not enough to succeed. I need others to watch us succeed. I need our haters to watch us succeed, because that will, in turn, make the victory even sweeter. And the road has been long, and it has been hard, and it's going to be even harder and more challenging as time goes on. I promise you there's no shortage of obstacles that I've faced in more recent years in terms of pushing Stomaria forward. But with all that said, we have made strides, we have made successes, and I intend to continue with that. And, as you say, the haters and detractors, they'll keep feeding the algorithm by engaging with our content, and I'm happy for them to do so. But the idea of just having them watch us succeed, it is quite satisfying, it has to be said. And helping to fund Stomaria in the process, because obviously every view, every watch minute, every watch hour that we get just helps to keep fueling Stomaria's growth. And in fact, I think it was a couple of days ago, I think we hit or crossed over the threshold for ad revenue since we were monetized, our YouTube channel. I think it's over £750 now that we have raised through just ad revenue. I tell a lie, it's probably not just ad revenue actually. It might also be from the contributions to our Patreon, through our super chats. So I might have to retract that one. But through YouTube at least, it's over £750 through ad revenue, and I think probably from our supporters as well. Which is a major milestone for us, and I'd probably talk more about it when we cross over the £1,000 threshold. I mean, this $100 donation has probably got a long way to accomplishing that, but that will by the by. Engaging with our YouTube content is a great way to advance the interests of Stomaria, and so for those that want to keep promoting Stomaria, want to advance the interests of Stomaria, but maybe don't have the financial resources to do so, just go binge watch our content. Maybe not some of our earliest content, because even I cringe at some of that stuff. But I have left it up there because it is a part of our history, it's a part of our evolution. And so no one can ever accuse me of trying to hide reality or hide the truth, or not being transparent in terms of where we started and where we are. And hopefully people that watch our content more regularly will probably tell the difference in terms of how far we've come in terms of video editing, in terms of my communication skills, in terms of whatever else. So yeah, go binge watch our content and advance the interests of Stomaria. Veridale has a very good question. How do you prevent burnout? And this is quite a poignant question directed at me, only because I've been doing this nearly non-stop for over 7 years. That is to say, we have had well over 1,000 posts and videos and updates about the development and the progress of Stomaria, or about our values and aspirations, or even our setbacks. And, there's very rarely that a week goes by where 1 or 2 videos is not posted, or 1 or 2 posts or updates of some kind, photos or just text blocks or whatever else, is posted about development and advancement of Stomaria, because I want to keep in the public eye. And I think the bottom line is that in order to prevent burnout, you just need to be passionate about what you're trying to do. And ultimately, I am. I'm extremely passionate about what I'm building. I do have other, quote-unquote hobbies or interests or whatever else, but ultimately it is the advancement of Stomaria, the advancement of the Empire, the growth of the Empire, which drives me. If I didn't, I'd be curious as to what I'd be doing all day. I mean, it might be a case of I go to work, I spend time with the family, I put Elena to bed, I go in, watch some TV or play some games or whatever else, and then just go back to bed and rinse and repeat. Stomaria gives me a lot of purpose beyond work and family, which are two major critical components of my life, without question. But I think Stomaria gives me that third pillar. That's something can be strive for, something to build, something genuine and generational. I can see it, the vision that I have for Stomaria, and every step that I take, however minor in the great scheme of things, is helping me to reach that point. And this drive to get to there as quickly as I can, and to accomplish as much as I can in the time that I have, this is what drives me. And so burnout for me is almost non-existent, because this is my passion. This is my reason for being in many ways. And so without Stomaria, I'm not sure what else I would be doing. What would you be doing if you weren't advancing the interests of Veridale? Would you be doing anything productive with your time? I mean, maybe you'd be join a gym, or start a new hobby or interest, which you'd find more interesting or whatever else. But if you're just going to end up doom scrolling, or just watching endless amounts of TVs, or gaming, or whatever else, which in moderation is fine, but if you're just going to do that constantly, day in and day out, instead of progressing yourself in some way, then I would suggest that advancing the interests of Veridale, or whatever nation building project that anyone else watching this might be building, has a lot more advantages to it, because you can do so much within the nation building experience in terms of learning about agriculture and apiculture and animal husbandry and renewable energy and systems of taxation and economic systems and monetary systems and government systems and vexillology and all manner of different things, even as minute as like the how national passports at large are designed, even down to the actual thread that they use within the passports, to the quality of the steel in sabres, in terms of how you get the right balance in terms of strength, the steel to the cutting edge. All of these things you can start to learn and pick up on just through the nation building experience. So it is a fantastic hobby for most people, but as I say, for me, it's more of it's a lifestyle. It's just what I do. It seems unthinkable to me that I would be doing anything else. So, to prevent burnout, in short, you just have to really want this. You want to have passion for it, and you want to have a vision that you're striving for, and you're wanting to work towards it. But if you're not as dedicated or as interested, or you don't think it's going to pan out exactly how you feel, then just do the things that will interest you within the nation building experience, or certainly some things that will advance your interest in some way. Be it growing your own food is a good example, because if you'd save yourself some money if nothing else, or you get the expertise and the experience and the skills necessary to grow certain foods depending on what you're growing. But if you're not particularly interested in monetary systems or economic systems, then you don't really have to delve into that so much. If you're just doing it kind of like as a side interest, if you want. Right. Dongbake says, Savrilla had a commie problem at one point, solved itself. Good evening. It's from, is it Savrilia? I'm sure it must be Savrilia. Yeah, I can't say we've ever had a communist problem, because we don't attract communists. Our position with private property, free market capitalism, freedom of exchange, and all the rest, it kind of is quite self-excluding, because typically communists don't want to associate with that, which is more than enough for us. It's perfectly fine from where we're standing. Malaki says, Dear Emperor, I have been inspired by you for many years now, and have enjoyed watching your content and the development of Stomaria over the years. Thank you for your service. Well, thank you very much for watching our content for as long as you have. I mean, the name isn't hugely familiar to me, so I don't know if you've commented on our content in the past, or certainly maybe you haven't commented as frequently as others, so maybe I've not picked up on the name. But it is hugely appreciated. What we are building is, in many ways, something that is going to help others to build their own nations. I mean, I've created the How to Start a Micronation series. I've started the How to Make, back when we were a Micronation. And when we abandoned the term Micronation, we obviously created the How to Start a Nation series. And in truth, both of these series are quite outdated. The Micronation one definitely so, but even the Nation one is quite outdated. I have pondered about creating a standalone video, probably be an hour long or something, which condenses everything, which I think is the most critical aspects of the nation building experience. I haven't managed to pull the trigger on it yet. I even wrote a script for it, but it'll take half a day to film, and I've not been able to pull myself together to bring myself to do that, because it is content that I've already gone through before, really. But the quality of it is not as concise or as I don't know. The videos maybe aren't as well edited. It was not as consistent in terms of the approach. I think a single standalone video which covered everything would be a good idea, but it would be like an hour long, and I don't know how popular it would be because we've already discussed this sort of thing in the past. But certainly our regular content, our regular updates, I think also does just inspire people to either take on lessons that we've learned, so hopefully they don't repeat the same mistakes that we've made, and hopefully can take advantage of the things that we have done and have been successful in doing. And as you say, hopefully it does inspire you and does inspire others to follow a similar path, because I would love nothing more than for more genuine nation builders to get some kind of value from what we're building. And over the years we have seen hundreds of comments from people who have said much like you that we are an inspiration to them. And as corny as it might be, it does fill me with a great deal of pride, because ultimately when Stomaria started, it was just myself, a flag stood in the corner of our living room, and 14, 15 followers on a Facebook page, and that's what Stomaria was. But we have since turned it into a comparative behemoth, which is quite far-reaching in again, comparatively speaking. Certainly in this field, as crowded but as also as incredibly niche as it is, we have managed to carve out a massive support base. We have managed to carve out a great deal of clout within our respective community, and I think there are people out there that do take a lot of inspiration from us, and even though there are obviously many detractors, I think there are just as many, if not far more, people who find Stomaria to be interesting and inspirational, and I'm glad to hear that you're one of them. So thank you very much for joining us. I don't know if you're still here. I'm not sure when you posted that, probably about half an hour ago now, but thank you for dropping by, but thank you if you are still here. I very much appreciate your support, so thank you. Sorry, I have just noticed. See, Carlos has sort of clocked it now. He's making contributions and asking questions at the same time. So he knows I am now obliged to answer these questions, so he has preferential treatment. I will get back to you all, I promise. Let me just tackle this one. So Carlos has made another generous contribution, so thank you very much, Carlos. And they've asked, what are your thoughts about wealth taxes? And my answer to that is quite a straightforward one, dead set against it. Stomaria in particular is an entity in which we advocate for voluntary taxation. That is to say, we believe that people should be contributing only as much as they wish to contribute to the state. Now, in order to facilitate this from our own perspective, the best way to counteract this on some level, the best way to mitigate the requirement, the necessity for taxation from the wider populace, is for the government to engage in the free market as an active player. And I suppose a good example of this would be Norway, actually. Now, I don't know if this is still the case, but it certainly was at the time that I remember reading about this, or watching some content about this. But I believe that Norway, or the Norwegian government more specifically, is the single largest stockholder in the world. And they have created a sovereign wealth fund by taking, again, playing an active role in the market, particularly the oil industry, because obviously Norway quite infamous for having oil in the North Sea. They have taken a lot of those funds and they've invested those funds, and the sovereign wealth fund helps to fund aspects of Norwegian society. And I think this sort of system replicated on our kind of scale is perfectly possible. And so the concept of a wealth tax, in which if you make money I'm going to confiscate from you, what right do I have to it? I think the government, by and large, has, I think, three primary roles, and that is to establish a framework of rules. So a framework of rules, of guidelines in which businesses and individuals can operate. And then they need to have some kind of judiciary to enforce those rules. And then they need to have the personnel available to keep the citizens safe, be it some sort of police force or armed forces or whatever else. But by and large, I think the role of the government should just be to get out of people's way and minimise the government involvement in people's lives. And that goes both ways in terms of providing for people, but also taking from people. And that's not to say that people require social care or whatever else, just be left to their own devices and abandoned on the streets or whatever else. But we do live, especially in Western societies, with a very bloated bureaucracy and very large welfare state, which I think in many ways can be cut back and reduced. Not to say that the most vulnerable in society should be left to their own devices or anything to that nature, as I say, but I think there is a lot of potential to cut the fat in a major, major way, and it will cause major disruption, and it would cause major disruption if implemented on a national level. But on the long run, I think it would save society. I think it would save our civilization, because the way we're going now, we spend too much on state programs, and we're not raising enough capital to do that, and so we're consistently getting into more and more debt. The deficit keeps growing, and sooner or later the bubble is going to burst, and we're just going to completely fail and fall apart and become a failed state like every other nation on earth that's gone down the route of thinking that they can print their way out of a problem. Going back to what we were saying earlier about printing money. But from our perspective, from the nation building experience, wealth taxes are of course just a non-starter, because I don't have any ownership or control over other people's property, and I wouldn't expect them to contribute anything that they don't want to. All of the funds that come through the Sumerian treasury, through our Patreon campaign, or previously our GoFund campaign, or our YouTube live streams, or whatever else, it's all voluntary. It's all people contributing funds that they want to contribute to Stomaria, and they're going to contribute the amount that is appropriate to them. They're going to contribute the amount that they believe that we are worth, that we are, or that they're able to give. And both are as valid points of decision as the other. That is to say, if you believe that we should be paid £1,000 in taxes, but you only have £5 to hand, then you're going to give the £5. But that's what I'm saying. It's all about people's ability to contribute and their willingness to contribute. And I don't have a part to play in that decision. And so Stomaria is a major advocate for voluntary taxation, not wealth taxes, and instead trying to lessen our reliance even on voluntary contributions from our supporters by trying to engage in activities which is going to generate revenue for the state, which is what I was talking about earlier about establishing this glamping venture. It is the state investing, as say Wayward and Stomaria, investing time, energy and resources into a business venture within the empire, which is going to generate revenue and in turn lessen our reliance on people from making contributions, so we don't rely on it so much. Not that it's not, again, fully appreciated, and it really is, but there's only so many times you can ask people to contribute financially, and our ability to fund ourselves is something that we are quite keen to try to facilitate in some way, and this is going to be a good way to do it. But this is just a kind of example, if you like, a real life example of how Stomaria believes in voluntary taxation, and also believes in order to make up the shortfall for voluntary taxation rather than kind of fixed or regular taxation, that we have to play an active part in the market economy in order to generate revenue ourselves. So very real world example. Right, where were we? Nabuya says, government should be the managers, not the rulers and dictators. Yes, I think that's fair to say. Like a manager of some, I'd say manager is probably better than a ruler. Certainly when it comes to my position as the Emperor of Stomaria, I don't go around people I don't insist that people refer to me as Your Imperial Majesty I don't insist that people refer to me as your, you know, or whatever else, you know, some fancy title that I've made up or whatever else. I am someone that's, I think relatively speaking, I think it's fair to say, relatively down to earth, relatively committed to getting stuck in myself. I never ask people to do things I wouldn't do myself, and my involvement in people's lives could not be more minimal if I tried. And my interest is to advance the interests of people around me. It's not to advance the interests of Stomaria at the expense of Stomarians. It's to advance the interests of Stomaria and Stomarians at the same time. And so, again, a good example of this would be the next land acquisition. It's perfectly possible that the next land acquisition, next province that we acquire through the funds that we raise, will be through a joint purchase agreement in which citizens of the Empire or select citizens of the Empire will have the opportunity to contribute towards the purchase of land in the sense that they will be joint owners of that land. And so it will advance the interests of Stomaria, advance the interests of the Empire, but also advance the interests of those individuals who become legal owners of a part of that territory. And again, it's just a real world example of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about advancing the interests of Stomaria and Stomarians at the same time. And as you say, it's not about ruling over people, it's about having the framework in place to give people the space to grow and develop and advance their own interests, while also, you know, having Stomaria, having myself, having the state play an active role in promoting all of our interests. And then we got to Zion, who again, massive contribution. I think can I like this? Or does this? Oh yeah, I can. Oh okay, maybe I'll go like them all. Hang on, because we've had a few contributions. Is that all of them? I think that's all of them so far. Oh, there was one more. There we go. I can love those. Lovely. I didn't realise I could love them. Okay, I'm gonna give some clicks. Just as a. There you go. Someone take over the heart tapping for me so I can carry on. There we go. Cheers, guys. Oh, it ran out. Never mind. I was fired up again. Fantastic work. Nabiya says, mixed market capitalism works. Free open capitalism is what leads to oligarchy. Well, this is the thing. This is what people differentiate between capitalism and, well, a lot of them would call it cronyism. A good example of that might be what's occurring in the States at the moment, especially with the Trump administration. I tend to keep out of politics in the ratio reform, but I think it's relatively undeniable that there's something very odd going in there, where the state, that being the Trump administration, and those associated with the Trump family, or those are part of the Trump family, seem to be making moves in the business sector, or various business sectors, which also seems to coincide with the advancement or the policies being promoted by the Trump administration. It's not exactly very subtle in a lot of cases, and that kind of cronyism is a problem. But as you say, some sort of mixed market capitalism, mixed market economy. I mean, we are believers in what you might call state capitalism, which is effectively a combination of a command economy and a free market economy. I like to think that it draws the best elements of both, but that tends to work well. Certainly from our perspective, it's going to work on a smaller scale, and we'll just have to see how things evolve over time. But the concept of private property, of private ownership, of free exchange, this will always be a central core tenet of whatever we do in terms of our development on the economic front. Yeah, and then we got to the commentary with Zion, who I'm not sure has commented since, so I don't know if he's just literally dropped $100 and then pieced out or what, but incredible. History reset. Do you wish to defect from Stomaria? Do I wish to defect from Stomaria? I'm not sure that would make much sense, since I'm, you know, the founder of Stomaria. the Emperor of Stomaria. Anyway, I'm not sure if that's directed at me or not. I would imagine not, and if it is, quite unusual. Oh, what have I done? Oh, I've put top chat, live chat. Sorry, I was looking for the option to try to hide, or unhide rather, the retracted comments. Gamborn says, Stomaria, it's time for a new flag. Make the blue a bit lighter. Not a chance. But thank you for the suggestion. Estua says, have any current citizens of Stomaria joined, then left, then came back? That's an interesting question. And I don't think... so. There might be a few. I'd have to check the records. I think there might have been like an inadvertent blip in some cases. Not that they sort of left in a huff or whatever else, or I think maybe just like a payment method didn't go through properly for a couple of months and they didn't realise, and then they joined back after that. But in terms of someone like actively leaving and then coming back, I don't think that's ever happened. I'd have to check. It's a very good question, but I'd have to double check. Daniel Maloney says, hello from Republic of Kazmira. How can a micronation get better? That is a very broad question, Daniel. But I think if you are looking to get better, in your words, I think there are, depending on where you are at the moment, I think there's just various things you can do. Which is, first of all, solidify what it is you stand for and your internal governance structures. You have to remain consistent in terms of your approach. So you need to have your brand firmly in place. You need to make sure that what you stand for and how you present yourself remains consistent. Speaking of the flag a moment ago, our flag has never changed. Our name has never changed. Our government structure has gone through some evolutions over time, but by and large has always been a federal empire, has always had the same kind of structure with some tweaking around it. People know what Stomaria is. People know our brand. People know our identity. People know what we stand for. And that's because we've remained consistent. Now, beyond this, if you want to advance the interests of your nation or your project, again, depending on where you're starting, I would definitely seriously consider beginning the process, if you haven't already, in trying to acquire land, acquire territory, to raise the necessary capital in order to do so. And if you don't quite get to that point, then certainly put capital towards the development of your nation in other ways, be it developing some kind of industry, or developing a range of merchandise, or encouraging people to join so that they can contribute towards it. So you might set up a GoFundMe or a Patreon campaign or whatever else. But you need to give something to... You need to give people a reason to get involved. You need to give people a reason to join. Carlos, you're taking advantage of the system now. Let me finish off this one, and then I'll get to you. Carlos has given another contribution. He's determined to be the most numeric contributor of Stomaria, and is cheating the system. He's cheating. He's gaming it. Thank you very much for your contribution. Hugely appreciated. Thank you again. I will get to you. Just give me 30 seconds. It'll be more than 30 seconds, but let me just finish this comment. But in terms of improving your standing, you need to have capital. You need to have revenue in order to accomplish everything. If you want to establish a monetary system utilizing silver, you need capital. If you want to get uniforms for your guard, your army, or yourself as a ceremonial uniform, whatever else, you need capital. If you want to acquire land, obviously you need the capital. If you want to buy seeds or tools and equipment in order to start an agrarian economy, you need the capital. And I have made a video relatively recently, it was probably last week. It's called How to Buy Land, and that just goes through some of the ways that you could potentially look at raising additional capital for your nation building project, which you could put towards land or more or less anything else. So hopefully that would be of some use to you. But the bottom line is, as much as a lot of micronations turn their noses up at the concept of it, you need money. And that's the bottom line. You need money to make things happen. Without it, Stomaria would not be anywhere near advanced as it was. And if you want more people to get involved, something that I was alluding to in a moment ago before we got the contribution from Carlos, you will not get people involved, or you'll struggle to find people who want to get involved unless you can show them what you are doing. Don't tell them what you are doing. Don't say these are your aspirations or these are your plans. People want to see that what they are contributing towards has some legs, is actually actively doing something. And so if we can get to that point, or if you can get to that point, then you'll hopefully start to get the ball rolling in a more meaningful way. Everyone that's contributing to Stomaria financially in this chat and through our Patreon campaign and through various live streams we've done before, and the GoFundMe we've done before, and the PayPal donations we had before, and all the rest of it, none of these people would have contributed towards Stomaria if Stomaria was not putting out content, showing people what we were doing. And so you really have to, a bit of a chicken and egg scenario, but you actually have to give people a reason to get involved. And so you have to start putting out content which is highlighting everything that you are not only striving to do, but actively doing. So hopefully, again, how can my micronation get better? A very broad question, but hopefully it gives you some indication of where I'm trying to come from here. Right, Carlos, here we go. Give that a love. Right. So, Carlos has very generously made another contribution and has made asked another question. So again, if people are watching, please do give Carlos some love, much like you have everyone else, including Carlos, in previous contributions. Give him some love, give him some likes, some thumbs up, some comments or whatever else. Hugely appreciative, certainly from my perspective, and I want to make sure that love is shared in amongst our very small but tight-knit community. Do you think that the business person and manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist? That's the best I could formulate it. That kind of sounds like a political compass question that I remember asking or being answered. Being asked probably like 15 or 20 years ago. So I don't know if that's still a question that gets asked. I think that they are as equally as important, or not. Maybe equally as important is probably the wrong word, but they are important for different reasons. Ultimately, businessman and manufacturer is hugely important for the evolution and development of technology and everything that comes with that. So all the products and services that we take advantage of would not be possible without businessmen and manufacturers. So our standard of living would be much reduced without people taking the risks and playing a major part in advancing the standard of living for all of us, at great risk often to themselves. So they are incredibly important. Whereas writer and the artist, again, they play a very important role because ultimately you might have food in your belly and a warm place to sleep, but if you lack the beauty around you, the architecture, the artwork that we find in our day-to-day lives, it is inconceivable to me that a world without art or without poetry or without literature, it's inconceivable that the world that we live in today would be better without such people. So again, both, I say both, all four of those types of people, the businessman, the manufacturer, the artist, the writer, they all play a major part in the development of society. And I appreciate that is a bit of a cop-out because I haven't actually chosen one or the other. Because I don't think I can. I think they all play a pivotal role in making our lives better. So I'm sorry it was a bit of a wasted question because I haven't really given you an answer, but hopefully it's satisfactory enough for you. And thank you again for the contribution. Very much appreciated. Right, let's scroll back up to where we were. The Raven says, good afternoon / evening. Hello. It's evening where we are at the moment. We are currently near 10 o'clock. Nation of Verendale says, what are your thoughts on... Is that tapestries? I don't think I've ever spelt tapestries before, so I assume that's tapestries. I'm almost done with my first Veridale themed tapestry project, and a post will be made about it later. Ah, right, so it is tapestry. Fantastic. I would be very excited to see it, actually. Yeah, so because I'm familiar with your YouTube channel. Occasionally I watch some of the content there, so I will keep my eye out for a post. But in case it's something that I miss, do feel free to post it on. I don't know where you would post it, actually for Stomaria stuff. I suppose you could join our Discord server and post it there, or you could join. I think you post on Reddit, don't you? On our subreddit. So if you want to post on the Stomarian subreddit, happy to see it there. Very excited to see it. And Veridale says, and yes, I love Veridale and will continue to do so, don't worry. Well, I hope so, because I do think Veridale has a lot of potential, frankly. It's lasted far longer than most, and that by itself is a milestone. But to have Veridale develop and expand far beyond what it is now, I think would be a massive win for all involved. Bronzilum. We'll say we'll call you. We'll just say Bronze for the moment. No, Bronzlum. It's Bronzlum, isn't it? We'll say Bronzlum. Bronzlum. How should nation builder projects prepare to change their leader when their time comes to do so? Very interesting question. Well, I suppose it depends on the nature of how that government is structured. If it is like Stomaria, where my time as the emperor will end on my deathbed and it will be passed on to others, I mean, that's relatively a straightforward process. If it's going to be the case of some sort of democratically elected head of government or head of state, or both, then it's going to be a lot more complicated, especially when assets are involved. So, and this is why I'm always a bit reluctant to encourage people to go down like the democratic route, especially if you are going to do something that's going to go beyond a Discord server or control of a Discord server or some sort of subreddit or something. Because once you have tangible assets involved, be it a treasury, be it a land as a worst case scenario, I suppose, when you hand over the mantle, you pass over the responsibility. I very rarely have ever seen that happening in a nation building project or in a micronation or whatever else, without some kind of massive falling out, without some kind of declarations of illegitimacy being declared, and with assets involved. It's very rare that assets are involved because most projects don't get to that point, but when there are assets involved, even something as simple as a website, that becomes a very contentious issue, and a lot of people just don't like losing their grip over something, which in a lot of cases is understandable. If you spent 5 or 10 years building something up, only for someone else to get voted into office and they're going to take it from there, maybe you'd be a bit peeved as well, especially if you invested vast amounts of your time, energy, and resources into it. But at the end of the day, if you're going to have a system which allows for the removal of the head of state or the head of government or whatever else, you've got to accept that that's going to happen at some point, and then you're going to have to bow out gracefully and make sure that's accommodated successfully. Otherwise, your project, as you know, is likely to fracture or fall apart. And that's why we have the system that we have. This is why it is, in terms of the governance of Stomaria itself, it is very much top down. It's very much my way or the highway. If you don't like it, that's fine. But it's happening anyway. And again, when my time comes, it will be passed on to Empress Samantha and then Empress Eleanor, as and when that occurs. Although she'll be Empress Eleanor at a time where I am no longer around. The Raven says, how would you feel about Liechtenstein recognized as independent? I think it would be highly unlikely, but deeply amusing. The thing is, we are not in a position to be independent. And this is, but this is the thing with a lot of, especially self-defined micronations, but a lot of other projects as well, is that there is this fantasist element to it where they absolutely unequivocally think that they have declared themselves to be independent or they wish to be independent. Stomaria is far further along than most entities, and we are nowhere near, not even close to even contemplating the idea that we want to separate ourselves from the wider world. We don't have the population, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the land. We will quickly fall into oblivion wherever to be granted. And we don't want anything to rock the boat before we are ready. We want to grow and expand through legal and legitimate means and attain what you might define as a de facto independence. And that means providing our own food, providing our own water, providing our own energy, providing our own housing, having our own manufacturing and agricultural industries, a sufficient number of people in order to facilitate all of this, and all the rest. And this is going to take decades. It's going to take generations to actually get to that point. I will not be alive for the time that Stomaria is in a position to have some kind of de facto independence. Don't doubt that for a moment. But I am laying the groundworks and attempting to lay the groundworks to make it happen. Now, I forgot the question, but in terms of Liechtenstein sort of recognizing us as independent or whatever else, I think it probably more, obviously gain a lot of attention, but some of that attention might be problematic for us on some level. Not that because we've done anything illegal or anything like that, but again, I think it would probably, it might be more amusing than anything else, and it would advance the interest of Sumerians, since I suspect we would get a lot more eyes on us. I'd just be wary that those eyes weren't always coming from people who found what we were doing to be interesting or something to strive for, but rather people that would seek to undermine or destroy us. And those people might have the authority or the capacity within the British Isles or elsewhere in the world to actually do something about it. So it would be interesting, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. How about that? Nation of Bernadelle says, I think an hour-long video on how to build a nation would be very cool. I don't disagree. It's just me finding the time to be able to do that. Because, yeah, at the end of the day, I've got a finite amount of time, finite amount of resources to be able to dedicate to making a video of that nature. I've spent so long writing the script, but I keep going over it because I keep changing the way that I think I want to go about doing it. Sometimes I want to focus on Stomaria itself. Sometimes I want to keep Stomaria out of it. Sometimes I want to do it as a personal experience. Sometimes I want to do it as a more generic kind of video about how to build a nation. And I can't really decide how I'm going to do it. And it's just one of those things where I've been working on it for probably 3 months or more, which has just aggravated me further because now I feel like I've invested so much time and energy into the actual script that I need to get the script absolutely perfect in order to do this, because I don't want to have to do it again in like a year or two. I'd want to do it in like 10 years time once I've got a bit more experience under my belt and have more to talk about, because I'd basically be rehashing the old stuff. I'm just trying to condense it somehow and try to think of the best way to structure it that's going to resonate with the most people. But it'll happen at some point, I'm sure. The Raven says, how many weapons like air guns or swords do you have? Stomaria itself does not have many. I think we have 4 Stomarian sabers, which are the sabers that a lot of people are familiar with, like the curved blade and all the rest of it. And then we only have 1 air rifle, I think. Oh, sorry. I will get to you in a moment. Thank you for your contribution. Just give me 1 minute. What was I saying? And we have 1 air rifle. The Waywoodian community have their own arsenal of sorts, but I think they're more of an axes and bow and arrow kind of community. But all the same, we are relatively well equipped, I would say, as it goes. But from our perspective, it's all we need, because at the end of the day, we are not looking to start a fight with anyone. It's mainly for aesthetics. It's for realism. It's to be authentic. Everything that we do is rooted in reality. It's not Nerf guns, and it's not little plastic toy swords or whatever else. It's genuine, and being genuine and authentic is a good way to attract the right people to what we're building, which is why we do what we do. But yes, we have a series of swords, air rifles, and then various selection of axes and archery equipment as well. And we have just had another contribution from, let me just skip to it. Oh, Seb. Oh, thank you, Seb. They say, if you do obtain a large province, would building an eco-village be a future idea/goal for Stomaria and Wayward? I mean, it probably wouldn't be at the next province, because the amount that we're going to be raising is not going to be sufficient to buy a plot of land that's going to be big enough to have an eco-village, sadly. We have made videos about this before, I don't know if you've seen it, but just in terms of the capacity for us to purchase land big enough to host people, in sense like to house people or to have an eco-village or whatever else, it's just not really on the cards. Now, as a fun fact, even before I started Stomaria, there was a time, and this was before Ellen was born, there was a time when me and Samantha were actively looking at, buying a new home. And we lived at the time at a little one-bed flat, and we did contemplate how much of a change would it be if we just literally built, bought some land and put up what they call a micro home on the land, which is like a little self-contained caravan, but it's quite aesthetically pleasing and actually looks like a house. And that was something that was contemplated to some degree. And this was before Stomaria. This was before Princess Eleanor and all the rest of it. But that is an idea that has resonated with me in some small way since then. Now, at the moment, it would not be suitable for us. I don't foresee. I mean, maybe for one person or a couple of people, it could be a good opportunity to get the land, or even not get the land, but have the space to to live independently without having like massive mortgages and massive costs associated with that. And that's something we could potentially look at in later years as an option for Stomaria and Wayward. Interestingly, we are actually going down to Wayward South and Southwood tomorrow. That is to say, me, Samantha, and Princess Eleanor, because King Daniel's going to take some photos of us at this on a glamping tent that's been set up for this glamping venture. And it does look like you could basically live there. It's got its own little kitchenette area underneath the gazebo nearby. It's got the bed, the storage, and everything. And we'll get some photos and videos of it going, so you'll get to see it in full action. But maybe something along those lines would be a possibility. But yeah, ideally long term, we do want people there staying, if not permanently, then more regularly as a starting point. There is just limitations on how long you can stay on certain lands, depending on what you're doing with that land and what the purpose of it is. And unfortunately, Southwood and Wayward South do have various restrictions on it in terms of how long we can keep people on the land for and what it can be used for and all that jazz. And there are sort of loopholes and grey areas which we can take advantage of. But yeah, for the next plot, it's in the cards. But like a full eco village, probably not going to happen. Not for the next province anyway. And thank you very much for your contribution. Seb, very much appreciated. I'm not sure what DKK is, to be honest. As a currency, let's have a look. Oh, Danish krone. Of course, of course. I should have guessed. Thing is, I knew you. I was quite convinced you were Denmark. For some reason, I just assumed that you guys use the euro. Denmark's in the EU, isn't it? I'm sure it is. I guess you were like Britain when Britain was in the EU, where we used the pound sterling, even though that we were a member of the EU. Okay, that's interesting. Well, thank you very much, Seb. Very, very much appreciated. Just out of curiosity, because I know in times past you were a citizen of Stomaria, are you a member of the Patreon campaign now? I don't know if you are. If you're not, I hugely appreciate the contribution. But as I've said repeatedly in this video, everyone that's making contributions to Stomaria through the YouTube live, hugely appreciated, massively appreciated. But please consider instead saving yourself some money and just making the minimum contribution on our Patreon campaign, so that you become a citizen of Stomaria and you can actually feel like you're a part of the community in the sense that all the contributions are going to go towards something that is hopefully going to advance your interests as well as Stomaria's at large. So again, you might already be there. I haven't checked recently the Patreon figures or the people involved, people on our Patreon campaign, our citizens on Patreon. But if you're not, then please feel free to sign up there. And if you, for whatever reason you're struggling or you're not able to or whatever else, then send us an email and we can talk about it. Because you are, I think you were on our Patreon campaign originally, talking about Stomarian citizens used to be on our Patreon campaign. And then we transitioned away from Patreon, then went back to Patreon. So there was a little bit of confusion on that front. My fault entirely, but we've got to try these things sometimes. Where did we get to? Gosh, we're quite far back now, aren't we? Estua says, do you think Veridale will someday become a member state of the Empire? I am extremely confident. I think the leader of Veridale has got his head screwed on. He's incredibly supportive of Stomaria, has never wavered in support of Stomaria. And I do consider, I mean, they're already a friend of the Empire, but critically, they are led by someone that is legally still a minor, because we don't build relations with those that are run. We don't build relations with entities which are run by those that are under the age of 18. Purely because we got to draw the line somewhere, and 18 just had to be that threshold. Likewise with New Esperance, he was King Charlie of New Esperance was a friend of the Empire because he was at the time 17, and then he became an ally of the Empire shortly after he turned 18. And then he became a full member state not long after. And I strongly suspect that Veridale will follow a similar path. He may even skip over the ally part and just apply to become a member state. And without question, he would definitely be in the running to become a member state once he's of a certain age. And even by then, in the years ahead, he will have pushed the interests of Veridale even further and advanced further. So very, very confident that one day Veridale will be a member state of the Empire. Austin, hello there. Hope I'm not late. Yes and no. It's gone 10, so we've been doing this for an hour and 45 minutes now. So we're a little bit late into it, but we're still going strong. I do have need to have a quick sip of my honey water. Just give me a minute. Oh, that's better. Right. Austin says, does Stomaria have a jurisdiction? Do you mean like a judiciary or a judicial system of some sort? In which case, no. We don't really have like laws or anything of that nature. Our laws are very much the laws of whatever the host nation is. In terms of, I mean, for us, it would be the United Kingdom government and all the local and national authorities, their rules and regulations, all the rest of it. What we promote are certain values and aspirations. So when it comes to laws, we don't have laws saying you can't, I don't know, I can't even think of a relative law that would be applicable necessarily. But in terms of our values and aspirations, that's where we tend to differ. And certainly once we're in a position to implement certain rules or guidelines in terms of how you behave in Stomarian territories or whatever else, that's something that we can certainly look at. But it's never been necessary, I think it's fair to say. So we don't have anything like that as yet, but it will come, I'm sure. Zion, hello, you come back. Sorry, I was in a meeting with my state heads and I'm getting ready to go into another meeting with another Micronation. Well, you're certainly a busy man, Zion, but if you are still here, it was a little while since, probably 20 minutes since you made that comment, but again, hugely appreciative of your contribution, hugely appreciative of your support. I hope it all goes well with your meeting with this other Micronation of yours, or this other Micronation that you're meeting up with. But please feel free to drop by at any time. You're more than welcome on our chat. Mika the Vamp says, I keep saying this, is it Mika or is it Micah? I assume it's Mika, but do correct me if I'm wrong. I'm here, I made it. You most certainly did. The Raven says, do you think that the military of a micronation should be lethal? Yes and no. It should be authentic, it should be genuine, and as such, it should be lethal. But, and there's a big but, it should never be used against other people for any reason, really. Certainly not for some of the most uh, pointless, cringeworthy reasons that micronations tend to fall out with one another. Um, but even so far as threatening language or whatever else, you should never use lethal force against others unless, with the only caveat being if you think your life or the life of those around you are in danger. Um, but in terms of like provoking fights and things like that or intimidating people, never. But for authenticity and for realism and to be genuine, I do believe that the weapons of any kind of like security body or military or militia or however you might define it, they should be lethal. Yes. Benevolent Autocracy has come in the chat. Hello there. The Raven says, I'm making typos like crazy. I'm awful for it. I mean, if I lose my train of thought, I'll start jabbering on about nothing and I'll start using the wrong words to describe certain things, as you've probably heard in this live. But even when typing out comments or whatever else, if I do it too quickly or if I don't think about it enough, the amount of times I have to write out like statements for the publications for Stomaria's updates or progress reports or whatever else, the amount of times I have to write a statement and then check it and then check it again and check it again just to make sure I haven't incorrectly spelt something before I publish anything. You would not believe how many times I have to do that just to make sure it's not got any spelling mistakes, because I'm really bad for those sorts of typos. I try not to be, and have gotten better over the years, but sometimes it's unavoidable on my end. Mika the Vamp says the $100 donation is crazy. Very grateful. Long live the Empire. Yes, very much agreed. We have discussed that at some length earlier on. Massive contribution, the biggest in our history in terms of live stream contributions, in terms of super chats or gifts. I'm not sure how they're defined these days, but yeah, the largest by far, and that was only because he broke his own record. But previously it was, I mean, you could, I think it was probably like $60 worth of contributions, but it was in like $20, $10 or something to that effect. And then maybe another $10, and then I threatened to ban him if he contributed anymore. So I think he's beaten his own record, because I think those are the biggest contributions up until that point. I think, and yeah, he's smashed it out of the park. Incredibly grateful, and yeah, amazing, truly amazing. Oh, sorry, did I miss one from you, Callus? Hang on, which one did I answer? Business person. I do apologise, Carlos. I didn't realise you made another contribution. You're making so many, I'm losing track of them. I know that I already made a question about religion, but it was related to politics. Do you think you cannot be moral without being religious? This is definitely from Political Compass. This is definitely those questions. I know that for a fact. Are you just going through Political Compass and like asking questions based on my own sort of interpretation of them? In either case, thank you very much again for your contribution. I think you can be moral without being religious. Now, there is an argument to be made in that you could say that religion has played a part in making society more moral. So even if you were born in the society but you weren't religious, you have benefited from being around people that now have a moral code which has influenced your own way of thinking, your own way of life. That is to say, if you went back, 2,500 years, most people would not think anything particularly wrong or unusual about genociding an entire city-state or slaves. Slavery would just be a fact of life wherever you went around the world, and people wouldn't think much of it. There wasn't exactly a major abolitionist movement 2,500 years ago, and over time that those opinions have evolved and have changed, and the concept of slavery is now completely abhorrent to most people. And there will be those that would say that religion potentially played a part in affecting those morals. But at the same time, you've got to remember, and this is the argument I would make against that, is that religion has also been something, you know, people think of morality as something that has just always been. It is the bedrock of society. This is how society functions. You know, the church, like take the Christian church as an example. They'll say that the religious doctrine has never changed or changed very, very little, and what it preaches now is what it's always preached, which I just don't think is true. It's not like we're persecuting in the United Kingdom. We're not persecuting homosexuality. We're not encouraging. We don't have slaves. We don't have serfs or whatever else. But there was a time throughout history in the last 1,000 years or so when Christianity was a major factor in the development of modern English and modern British identity, that the church would have not only facilitated but encouraged and made excuses for all such things. And so it's difficult for me to say where morality is actually derived from. I don't know if religion even has a role to play in that, because I think in some ways religion tends to play catch up when it comes to our understanding of what is, morally right. I think probably just lean back to like gay rights and all the rest of it as a good example. There wasn't, I would imagine, there wasn't much of a campaign from like the Church of England or the Catholic Church saying that homosexuals could get married in the United Kingdom. I don't think there was a major campaign for that from that angle, from that kind of community. But nevertheless, that happened. Homosexuality was legalized, and then civil partnerships became a thing, and then gay marriage became a thing. And it's like an 80-20 issue. The vast majority of people just don't have an issue with it at all. And I think the church has played catch up in the sense that it's not as hard as it would have been in previous years on the concept of homosexual relations or legalizing homosexuality or homosexual marriage or whatever else. And I wouldn't have any figures, and maybe I'm just talking nonsense here, but I'm sure that there are certain religious figures in the Christian church, either Church of England or Catholic, or whatever else, who are, I don't know if they're openly homosexual or something to that effect, but whatever it is, it's a lot more sympathetic to that. And this is just like one example of morality and how we view the world and what religion has done or not done in relation to that. So again, I'm waffling. I'm just kind of like thinking these things out as we go. I'm kind of like formulating this thought process in a live stream. But I think broadly speaking, what I'm saying is correct in that you don't have to be religious to be a moral person, but then what defines morals is another question entirely. Because if it's not religion, and there's a lot of arguments to say that it's not, then what is it? What does define morals? How are we? How do societal norms shift? And what are the catalysts for those? It's an interesting question. It's an interesting thought process, and I don't have the answer. But these are the kind of things I like to think about. These are the sort of topics I like to discuss. Things that really, force you to think a little bit more about the world, about how the world works, and how the world, what the world was, and how it's evolved and developed. It's interesting. It really is interesting. Far more interesting and entertaining from my perspective than declaring war on someone. So take that for what it is. But thank you for your contribution. Hopefully, I don't think it answers the question really, but I do appreciate the question and the contribution. Mika the Vamp says, a lot of contributions in the stream across the globe too. Yes, yep. Denmark, Brazil, and the United States so far. So yeah, we're going global, and that is the thing about Stomaria, is that we are a global community. We're a global empire in every sense of the word. We have lands in the United States, we have lands in Portugal, we have lands in Britain, and we have citizens all across the world. Ironically enough, we have a sizable. I say sizable. We have the number of citizens in mainland Britain is surpassed by citizens in other parts of the world. I think we have more citizens in the United States now than we do in Britain. And that's to say nothing of all the citizens elsewhere around the world, be it in Spain or Portugal or France, or further afield. Yeah, a proper global empire, all being orchestrated from my living room. Veradale says, Benevolent Talker says hello Andrew and hello there. Veradale says, it's been a while since my last YouTube post. How would you recommend I get back on track? I suppose it depends on what you want to talk about. I mean, I very rarely make any video in which I don't actually want to talk about. There's kind of two videos that I do. Videos that I want to make and videos I feel I have to make. So if there is a major development or a setback in Stomaria, I'll typically make a video about that. But normally it's just a topic that's going to spark my interest, which motivates me to write a script or whatever else. If you've taken a break from Veradale, maybe it's nice to have it depends on how long the break is. I think you've been gone for a couple of weeks. I think maybe you said the same. Did you say a few weeks? You said it's been a while, but I'm sure in one of your latest posts you said 2 weeks. But that aside, if you want to have a pause in something and then maybe like a refresher, maybe go over, what your plans are, what Veradale is, what it stands for, what its plans are, what you hope to achieve, what you're going to achieve, how you're going to achieve it, all that sort of thing. I do like making those kinds of videos, but again, everyone has their sort of preferences. Obviously, we have our progress reports that we make sometimes, which incidentally are probably the least popular aspect of our channel, ironically enough. And people tend to get drawn more to the more, I'm not going to say drama videos as such, but certainly the ones that would appear more dramatic than they actually are. But yeah, I suppose it depends. If you're looking to grow your YouTube channel, you need to start some drama, I think. But if you want quality content, then certainly talking about Veradale, what it is, what it stands for, where it's going, and how you're going to get there, I think that would be a good place to start. Or talk about how great I am, or how great Stomaria is. I'd watch that. The Raven says, if you eventually achieve domestic production, sufficient land, population, and infrastructure, would you seek external recognition? I don't think even at that point we'd bother, because this has always been my thing. Recognition does not equal legitimacy, as far as I'm concerned. There are plenty of quote-unquote nations out there that do not have recognition but still exist. I suppose an obvious example would be the Republic of China, also known as Taiwan. That is not recognized by 90% of the nations of the world, and of those, I suspect 99% of the world's population. And yet they still exist. They're still there. They still operate. They still function. And I think getting Stomaria to not quite as advanced a point as that, at least not in my lifetime, but certainly striving for Stomaria to acquire the tens, hundreds, or thousands of square kilometers of land where we can develop ourselves as a major, serious player on the international stage without actively, participating on it on that level, would be a major boon for us. I mean, if financial resources were not a question, if I was Elon Musk and I wanted to start a nation, buying up vast tracts of land and getting people to live on that land and work on that land and establishing that monetary system on there and the various industries necessary to actually, create a self-sufficient system and self-sufficient nation on some level, we'd be well away. But as it is, we come from very meager means in the great scheme of things, and so everything that we do has to be slow, methodical, carefully planned, and can only be done with the support of people like yourselves, who have been very generous in helping to support us, not just today, but throughout the last 7 years or so. But yeah, seeking external recognition, not so keen about the idea, only because I don't think it's necessary. It's not part of our plan. It's not on the list of things to do in order to accomplish our goals. We get to a certain point, the recognition will come at some point. That external recognition only validates that we exist anyway. But if we already exist, then it is what it is. Mika Vamp says, my brother and neighbor have a hunting license and pellet guns. Have you ever been gifted weapons, sabers, air guns? Never been gifted them. I have gifted sabers to others, but I've never been gifted them, no. Bronzillum says, infinite bacon, but no games, or infinite games, but no bacon. Ooh. I can probably live without bacon before I lived without games. So I'd probably say infinite games, but no bacon. Mika says, if you had the option to become an independent nation and break away from the UK right now, would you do it? Sign it. Not a chance. And this is the thing, I'm a realist at the end of the day. If I don't think we're ready to do something like that, then I will never do it. And we're not. We're not ready at all. No, we can't survive on a quarter-acre plot at Southwood, a quarter-acre plot at Wayward South. Obviously got like 40 acres or more in the United States, another acre or so in Portugal, but neither of those are going to be hugely beneficial to me in the immediate term. I don't want to wave my passport to go through some sort of check-in service every time I want to leave the front door. So it needs to be done with a realistic, pragmatic approach, because if it's not done that way, then it will just completely fall apart. And it's better to be better not to establish a state and not fail than to establish a state and to immediately fail, because that's exactly what would happen. The Raven says, I want to buy a furnace to melt metals, copper, bronze, brass, aluminium, and various other metals, hopefully in the near future. I'm very interested in, just scrolling down, casting coins, bars, and ingots. And that is a very fantastic thing to get involved with. In fact, fun fact, Lord Christensen of Stomaria, maybe more commonly known as formerly Consul David of Vesta, also of the Empire, he experimented with smelting copper bars and ingots. In fact, we have some here. We exchanged silver status for them some years ago now, 2022. So we have these Vestian copper bars, which I still have, which do have purchasing power, which do have value. Even if it is just a scrap, but to me the sentimental value is far higher. But again, I mention that because he did it himself. He bought himself. I think it was a furnace. I think he sent some footage as well. I'll have to dig it out somewhere, and made some copper bars for us. So it would be good if you did something similar. I'd definitely encourage it. Stuart says, has there been any born citizens of Stomaria or Wayward apart from Princess Helena? Not that I'm aware of, actually. I mean, it's possible, because the thing is with Stomarian citizens and Waywardian citizens and all the rest of it is that we don't necessarily keep tabs on all of them, because all of them, not everyone plays an active role in Stomaria. Some people are recognized in names, some people are recognized as supporters, long-term or otherwise, but I won't always know if they have families, or if they're married, or if they have a new member of the family. Certainly if I'm the more active citizens I'm more aware of. I know their stories, I know where they are, I know where they come from, I know, I've met them on those occasions. But I would say the most citizens, when they join, but I don't actually know much about their personal life. So it'd be interesting to know. Again, another great question, but I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that, I'm afraid. Seb says, I was on Patreon, but when you said it was going down, I stopped it, but I considered signing up again. Okay, so you haven't joined up yet, but yeah. So to become a citizen of Stomaria, or to remain a citizen of Stomaria, you will have to go through the Patreon campaign. Not to say that your contributions or your support is not appreciated or whatever else. I think you might probably in the email chain or rest of it when we talk about these things, we just have to come up with a straightforward, streamlined system to do this because I can't keep going through the process of you know reviewing application forms or having face-to-face interviews with people and all the rest of it. It's just too time consuming, and occasionally doesn't even yield to any positive results. And the back and forth I have to have with people in order to get these forms to be completed or whatever else, or these interviews to be correct, it's just not worth the aggro. If people just pay £1 a month, then I know that they are interested in Stomaria and they're supporting the Stomaria. So that's the way we do it. So I would encourage you to join as a citizen because I would love to have you as a citizen. You've been a long-term supporter of Stomaria, a long-term citizen of Stomaria as well. So I'd love to make sure that you're still on board in a more formal capacity. But your contribution, again, earlier contribution, really much appreciated, very much appreciated. Thank you very much. But if you are going to do something like that again, then I would encourage you just to do it through the Patreon campaign. The Raven says, I'm a Christian. I think over 18 should be able to do what you want, but minors should not be allowed to make decisions to transition, just like they are not allowed to get a tattoo. Transition to what? Sorry. Or are we talking about, I don't know if we're talking about transgenderism or something else. But yeah, when you're over 18, as far as I'm concerned, you're... Well, I mean, there's always an argument to say if it's over 18 or over 21 or over 16 or whatever else, but I think 18 is probably a good figure to open the doors of the wider world to you in terms of what you can and cannot do. But yeah, that aside, I think at that point you're your own man or your own woman, and you should be able to get on with your life as you see fit from that point, so long as you're not doing harm to others, which is obviously the major caveat to that. Where are we? Ravenwood says, apologies for being late to the live. That's quite all right. How long have we been going now? We've been going, what's the time? 10:30, so we're going a little over 2 hours, so we're doing okay. The Raven says, do you like pineapple on pizza? Weirdly enough, I do. I used to frown upon people. I used to look down upon people. I used to criticize people for putting pineapple on pizza. But I remember one time that we were making our own pizzas. This was a couple of years ago. And I think it must have been Samantha, Empress Samantha, put some pineapple on the pizza. And I put my nose up at it. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing pineapple on pizza? And I remember when it was put into the oven and it came out and it looked really good. And so I did have a piece. And ever since then, I'm not going to lie, pineapple on pizza has been not always my go-to, but certainly it's up there in terms of preferences. So I'm a changed man. Never say I will never change my views on things, because that's close to the heart, that one. Mika Vamp says, thanks for answering my questions. I'm quite tired, so I'm going to go to bed. Good night, long live the Empire. Thank you very much for joining us, Mika. Very much appreciate it. We'll probably wrap up before too long as well. It's been a very, very good live, very productive live, but we don't want to be too late. And I think we are actually getting to the end of the comments, so I will give it a little bit of time just to make sure there's any other questions, but we'll get to that in a sec. Raven says, also, if you had $1 million must be spent on Stomaria, what would you do? I have to go in about 25 minutes. I think I would probably buy... mostly I'd use those funds to buy and develop land. So buying the land is only half the battle. You actually have to have the resources in place to actually develop that land, to establish the infrastructure, the housing, the agriculture, whatever you're going to do. And then the rest are probably sink into silver reserves, into establishing a monetary system. Because as far as I'm concerned, there are three things that are absolutely pivotal to the advancement of Stomaria, and that is land, that is silver, and that is citizens. Without any of these three components, everything else falls apart. If you have the land and the silver, there's no citizens, you don't have a nation. If you have the land and the citizens but no silver, you don't have a medium of exchange, you don't have the ability to have a functioning economy, and things just stagnate and eventually collapse because of it. Ultimately, you'd end up using fiat currencies, same as everyone else. Using a commodity money like the silver status is absolutely essential towards attaining a greater deal of autonomy for ourselves. And then obviously without the land, you don't have the space to actually build a nation. You can't build the industries, you can't have the houses, you can't have a space for your community to grow and to flourish and to develop a true sense of cultural identity. And so the three pillars of Stomaria, the three things, and I've talked about this for many years now, is land, silver, and citizens. We need those three components in order to make a successful nation, as far as I am concerned. Stuart says, I also like pineapple and pizza. Well, there you go, kindred spirit. Bronzellum, I will get this right at some point. Bronzellum or Bronzlum. Is it Bronzellum or Bronzum? Let me know in the chat, please. Has a nation ever acknowledged your existence, not like recognition, but just acknowledged? No. We've neither sought acknowledgement or been given acknowledgement. I think I answered a similar question earlier about recognition. Right, I am going to be going shortly. I will give you a few minutes in case there are any more last-minute questions. It's been a terrific live, very much enjoyed it. But if there are any more questions or concerns, do let me know. I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes or so. And then I will answer what's left. And just while you guys have a think about that and ask what you want, I am going to quickly just check on a few things, as I have had a flurry of notifications from some of our social media, and I just want to double check that everything is all right. So probably not very entertaining for those that are just tuning in. But if you do have any questions or concerns, as I say, please feel free to ask. Right. Let's have a look. No, I think we're all good. There's a couple of quick questions. Stuart says, when will next live be? My intention is it'll be next Friday. So going forward, I think it'll be a Friday evening job, these live streams that we do. So I think, give me a day or two to confirm a date, but I think it'll be next Friday. So that will be, hang on, let me give you a definitive date. Well, not a definitive date, but let me tell you when it's likely to be. Oh, the 7th, that's easy enough. Okay, set the 7th of August will probably be the next one. Bronzlum. Okay, so it's Bronzlum. Very good. Thank you very much for answering that. Veridel says, have a nice night. Yep, you too. Stuart says, thank you for answering my questions. It's been a pleasure as always. No, thank you guys. I mean, it really does mean a lot when you guys pop in, say hello, and to ask all your questions. It really does make the live a lot more enjoyable when you get more participants. So thank you. Thank you very much. And oh. Right. All right, let me just finish off this other one from Bronzland. Do you read political theory? I'm not sure if that's a book or something to that effect, but I'm not sure. I'm familiar with various political theories, but I don't know if that political theory is a specific book. or a series of books or whatever else. But if that is the case, then no, I doubt it. Carlos has finished off the night by making another contribution. He says, nah, I just got one more question from there. What are your thoughts about the right to arms? I'm against bearing weapons, but I think every person should have the right to have at least a repeating long gun without permit. We actually had this conversation. I don't know if you're in this conversation actually. Obviously not, but I think it was last live stream. I'm in two minds about the right to bear arms because being in Britain, we don't really have the culture of owning firearms or utilizing firearms in the main. It's not as a hot topic issue as it is like in the States, as an example. Like there's no major political party that's advocating at any point for gun rights or for legal ownership of firearms or whatever else. There's just no appetite for it in the UK. And so on the one side, I am perfectly aware that if we were to legalise firearms in the United Kingdom, first of all, it would likely be against the wishes of the vast majority of the British people, but also it will inevitably lead to an increase in gun violence. I think that's just an indisputable fact. But on the flip side, my more libertarian streak would suggest that the right to bear arms, it could be defined as something that you are entitled to. Now, I suppose the tipping point for me in the last discussion we had wasn't so much about gun ownership as such, but in the UK in particular, it's about the right to self-defense, because ultimately that's what we're talking about. That's what the bottom line is. The advocates of legalizing firearms for individuals would say that it's there to first and foremost, I suspect, protect yourself, your family, your property, and all the rest of it from others. Whereas those would advocate against legalizing gun ownership would obviously say that legalizing gun ownership is more likely to get yourself, your family, or whatever else hurt, or in a worst case scenario, killed. And if you look at the per capita death ratio of people in the United States that have died via gun violence versus UK, it's not even close. It's different leagues, and there is that risk if things were legalised in the UK that we would follow down that same route as those in the United States. And once you've taken that genie out of the bottle, there's no putting it back. That's why in the United States it would be virtually impossible to legislate against the ownership of firearms. I think there's 3 firearms per American these days. It'd just be impossible to confiscate them or tell the American people that they wouldn't be able to have firearms anymore. I just don't think that's ever going to happen. Certainly not without a lot of bloodshed in the process. So once you open that can of worms, it's just you can't get it closed. And so with that in mind, I think the more prevalent question from my own perspective is this question of self-defense, this right to self-defense. Because in the UK, as a lot of people might be aware, there is this habit of punishing and penalising the victims of crimes. And this has happened time and time again over the years, where it's been the perpetrators who have been made out to be the victims. It's been the actual criminals who have been given greater levels of grace and opportunity, and in a lot of cases support from the police and institutions, the judiciary, the state, and the public at large, for whatever reason. Depends on who it is. And I think this idea in which you cannot defend yourself or your property without fearing repercussions from law enforcement and the state, I think is a dangerous slippery slope that we go down. And I think before we talk about legislating gun laws, I think we really need to have a good look at making sure that just the laws that we have in place already need reviewing to the point where people are able to protect themselves, their families, their property, without fear of repercussion, without fear of persecution, without fear of the state or the judiciary or the law enforcement bodies of the country coming down on them. And once we've got that sorted, maybe we can open up the discussion about gun ownership. But I think on balance, I would fall down the side of saying no, personally. but only because I'm aware that even though that it would technically, be considered a right in terms of your right to have firearms, your right to protect yourself in that sense, it would inevitably lead to more death. And as I say, there's no going back once you've done that. So it really needs to be a question for the ages. But I think on balance, I would fall on the side of no, purely because I don't want to live in the same way that a lot of American people do in American cities or in certain parts of the country, where any moment you could be harmed or whatever by a firearm, by some unscrupulous individuals. But that's all by the by. Anyway, I think we will leave it there. I very much enjoyed it, and we will do it again. Hopefully, we'll see you all next Friday. Thank you again, Carlos. Very much appreciative for your contribution, and obviously to Zion. Both hugely generous in your own ways, and extremely pleased to have you on board. But as I keep saying, please, if you are going to make those contributions, please do so through our Patreon campaign, because it'll cost you less, but it'll be more useful from our own perspective. It'll be more beneficial from our perspective, doing it that way. Not only do we retain more of the funds because Patreon will take less of it, I believe anyway, and that aside, it will help to bring you closer into our community, which is ultimately what I want to do. So, with all that, I hope you will have a very good evening, and we'll catch you in the next one.